Your background's very blurry. What's happening in your world?
So, so basically, I'm in my living room, and my wife is cooking bread and moving lots of stuff ready for when our baby comes in a couple of months. So I blocked, blocked it
Oh,
off.
well, congratulations. But yes,
Oh,
I
thank
understand
you.
why you're blur. She probably is like blur the hell out of that background.
Yeah, she hasn't had a chance to move it all yet, so I was just like, "Don't worry, I'll blow it out. I'm sure it's fine."
Oh, well, congratulations to you both. That's lovely.
Thank you so much. Christmas baby, it seems.
Oh,
So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
perfect gift.
Huge congratulations first and foremost on Amsterdam Empire.
Thank you so much.
Really good fun. I really enjoyed the bits I've seen so far. And you're a bit of a triple threat on this.
Yes.
The first thing I will ask you, obviously, is as an actor, the lure of this script because it's very unexpected. It's very different. It has lots of different tones, different themes that audiences might not have seen before. So I can imagine all of those things made it quite easy for you as an actor to say, yes, this is something I really, really would like to do.
Yes, I mean, it was interesting when it came my way because over the years, I didn't start acting until I came to the States because I left Holland when I was 18 as a model and worked all over Europe. And then by 22, I ended up in the States, went to school there, and then started acting. So my acting career has been all in English, and on projects all over the world, but not in Dutch. So when this gets over the years, people have offered me things, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know, and I don't know. And I think the timing of this and the Netflix component, most importantly, made this the perfect project for this time. I in the past, I think before Squid, let's just do it before and after Squid Games. I think that sort of changed everything. People weren't in America weren't watching, project films or series with subtitles or in the original language or dubbed, or they just all thought it was too cumbersome and difficult. And that I think has fully changed now, and it's wonderful to see that there's a real market and a hunger for it. And I think more and more people are looking for authenticity, and it's probably because we've all watched so much that we've everyone is probably now a critic and an expert, and unless it's true and authentic and real and different, it just doesn't seem to hit quite in the same way as maybe in the past, those glossy kind of big movies and all that. I think there's a change. And so Amsterdam Empire came into my life at the perfect timing because with Netflix behind it and knowing that we are going to launch, on October 30th, like worldwide on the same day. But it being in Dutch and it being authentic and this character that's very colorful and interesting. And then, I said, I'll come back, but only if I'm an executive producer on it, because I want to come back and have more control than I've had before. And so that ended up being the best decision of my life because it ended up just giving me. I learned a lot. It was definitely, I took on a lot on this one between the acting, and that character's not an easy character to play because I mean, she's a bit of a train wreck for sure. But I also worked very hard at giving her more layers and making her more vulnerable so that we wouldn't just see this angry tornado, ravaging through this country through Amsterdam, destroying everyone and everything in sight. Although that's very fun to watch for like a few minutes, but at some point you want, something more real and grounded. So I worked very hard on that. And then, because, and that wasn't originally, I wasn't meant to design my clothing, but because I realized that I had such a clear vision of what I wanted Betty to look like, because her clothing said so much about her journey in life, her past, her childlike behavior, her reluctance to grow up, the hanging on to this, one hit wonder thing that she had, and all of it, and screaming for attention and not wanting to grow older, and like all of these things that I just said, okay, but now I'm so deep into this, and I'm basically telling people what to do, and so that's when I said, okay, then I want to be costume designer, and I ended up doing that as well, and then we did a music video on top of that, which I was trained for while we were filming. Singing lessons and dancing lessons. And I mean, I literally never thought that. I mean, if somebody had told me at the age of 5 or 12 in Amsterdam, going like, "You're gonna one day you're gonna make a music video," I would have just burst out laughing. What are you talking about? Or even sing, but to work towards something like scary, but so incredibly fulfilling, and yeah, wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
Especially the
And give
dancing part. Oh, it's just love.
and given that there's so much going on with Betty and around her and stuff like
Yes.
that, you talked about, the contradictions and all the stuff that's going on with her as a character. How beneficial is it to have it kind of episodic in the terms of like you get to spend more time with her rather than if this was a film, you might not get to explore it in the same way. So there must be a huge advantage to do it the way that you guys have done it.
It's interesting because to me, there's always an advantage and a disadvantage to doing a series. I grew up in film. That's really the majority of the work that I've done is in film. And what I love about film is that you know what you sign up for. There's a script, you know the character arc, you know the storyline, you know everything. And you start creating from that. Um, on a series, they write them as you go. I mean, and my first real experience with that was Nip Tuck. And working with Ryan Murphy, who, they pitched this idea of Ava Moore that I was playing at the time. And I said, oh, and I'd seen their first season and I was like, oh, he's amazing. Ryan Murphy is incredible. And I would love to work with him. But as we were filming, everything changed all the time. And he's so collaborative. So he would go like, oh, wow, I didn't realize you were such a good crier. And then all of a sudden had more scenes to cry and like whatever. But so it also is daunting because you don't know what you're going to play and what you're going to be asked to play, and so you can't work in the same way on an arc as you would as in a feature film. So I think it has its pros and cons. It's nice to live with a character for that much longer and you can create a lot more out of that. But the flip side, like I said, is that you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's going to happen.
Hmm. As an executive producer, how much when you first signed on, how much of the original kind of concept and the scripts as you were going was, I mean, how much did you want to change? Was it kind of minimal changes, or was it more that you wanted to cater it to you rather than changing lots of different things?
Well, I think one script had been written by the time I signed on, and from that moment on, I worked incredibly closely with Nico and the rest of the writers to implement changes and whatever. And I think they were definitely more open to hearing from me about Betty than they were about the rest. But if there were things that really stood out where I thought, no, I have to speak up about other characters, I would speak up. But I was very instrumental in, and it was a fantastic experience to see what kind of, creative, how creatively you can be involved in a project and how much you can add and change. And, and it was, I think, a first for Nico to work that way. And it was a first for me to work that way. So, we found our way through it, by learning and growing and seeing what we could do. But yeah, I'm incredibly proud of the changes that I was able to implement in, and working on diversity in general, which is something you see a lot more happening in the UK and in the US. There are a lot of, things in place, and so it's more common. I was a bit taken aback by the Dutch culture and how it felt sort of, a little backwards in those areas where I really try to have an influence on that as well, because I thought it's important, and I understand it's a different culture. I understand it's done differently. Most of the actors are cast out of you know, film schools or theater schools, and a certain type of person can afford those kinds of schools. So already you're from that, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like America where somebody can be born anywhere and become an actor or do any, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very different culture, culturally very different. So these were things that it was fun to, to come into my own culture, but now through the eyes of someone who's had an international career and who's seen a different way of working and living and being. And, the biggest cultural difference, I think, is really, and you probably can relate to that as a Brit, but you know how the Brits and the Dutch are a little bit more like, just be normal. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to stand out. And if you do, or if people become successful, they just want to take them down. And in America, it's the complete antithesis of that. It wasn't until I came to America where I was like, wait, I'm allowed to dream. I'm allowed to dream big. I'm allowed to, try to create my own future instead of sort of, walking a path that people have set out for me or whatever. So it was just interesting to come back into the culture I'd grown up in and then have sort of outgrown that culture, but also being able to implement some of those things that I'd learned and bring them back. And so it was just overall probably one of the biggest growth spurs I've had in my life and career by doing that.
Well, just yeah, just slightly off topic. My wife's American, so while there's not much culture difference, there's little things that you don't realize as a Brit when your wife is American and vice versa that you there's little nuggets in there where you're kind of like, okay, this is where we are a little bit above,
Yes.
apropos
Well,
for
I mean,
everything else.
there's a huge gap between being Dutch or American. I'm not American, but
Yeah,
I mean, that's a big cultural difference.
yeah, yeah.
So
What's
different.
did you? Sorry, I cut you off. Sorry.
No, go
Um,
ahead.
did you find consciously or maybe subconsciously that when you did the producing side of things that you were a little bit more comfortable as you went along, given that you'd been in environments where you've been on huge sets with lots of money involved, you've been on independent movies where you've shot for, I don't know, 21, 28, 30 days or something like that. As you went on, did you find that made you a little bit more comfortable, or did it not play
Well, I
too
mean,
much
it's
role in it?
certainly, I think it helped enormously that I wrote, directed, and produced a feature film probably 10 plus years ago now called Bringing Up Bobby with Mila Jovovich and Bill Pullman. So I've already had the experience of, and then of course, even though it was a smaller budget, but I had a lot of control on that, obviously, because of all the roles that um, behind the camera that I played. So I've had the experience, and I think in this case, probably what I tried to navigate more than anything in the beginning was how much can I push, and when is this? Do they feel like I'm overstepping? And that's, I think, mostly because of the Dutch and Belgian, because the showrunner and writers were Belgians, which was a whole other cultural component to it. And so I think it was just navigating that in the beginning, going like, yeah, kind of, I want to speak up and I want to say, and they're not used to it because in my initial, approach to this, they said, oh no, we don't work like that in the Netherlands with, actors coming in as executive producers. And I go, well, I I'm coming, that's how I'm coming, you know what I mean, on this project or not. So it was a learning experience for everyone, but I think, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I just wish that from now on this is how I could work all the time. It suits me.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed you will get to
Mm,
something like this. And Netflix seems to be, for the positives and negatives of Netflix, it seems to be a place that embraces people being able to do things that maybe they aren't allowed to do necessarily,
definitely.
or directors being able to direct a film that maybe they wouldn't get financing from. So I guess you felt a little bit of that, given that they are a platform allow
I
people
think
to
they're
be
a wonderful
filmmakers.
platform. I've worked with them over the years, starting with Hemlock Grove and working with Ava DuVernay and When They See Us, just different projects over time. And I find this, especially now that I'm working much more closely with them as an executive producer and, in now the publicity campaign and all of it. It's just been, and the team in the Benelux are just incredible. I adore working with them. Very inclusive and yeah, just and all women, which is sorry, but I love.
It's all
So,
hey, it's all positive. It's all positive.
mhm.
I think for the industry, it's very very positive, and you know,
Yes,
hopefully female directors and that get a bit more recognition as the years go
I
on, and
hope so
filmmakers and all
too.
that kind of stuff. Let's the fingers crossed for that. All for
Yes,
all for that. Um, Before I let you go, very quickly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. You probably know this, but me and some of my editors on this site very excited that GoldenEye is about to turn 30, which on the one hand makes us feel quite old, but on the second hand, reminding us just how good that film is. And it was such a big swing because at the time it was Pierce Brosnan's first film. There hadn't been a film for many years, and then you got to be part of that. And I guess it's a movie you get asked about a lot because your character in that is so unique, and she has a unique way of doing things.
One could say, yes.
Yeah, yeah. But that was one of your first experiences, I guess, in terms of that. And it's a big, huge
It's a
project
huge,
to
yeah,
be on. Do
it
you
was a
still look back
breakout moment.
fondly? Do you still look back fondly on GoldenEye, given it was such a big
I
deal
look back
at
so far.
the time?
It literally changed everything for me. I mean,
Mm.
up until that point, I'd been working, but I'd been struggling a lot. And when this opportunity came my way, and now looking back, I go, how, how did I dare to be so brazen about everything? Because I was interviewed, I've been interviewed over time, but somebody did a book on, the Bond movies and all of that and interviewed me a couple of years ago. And so he was telling me all these anecdotes, and I thought, oh my God, I was so outspoken and I was so, for someone with really nothing much under her belt, I fought incredibly hard to get that character in the way that I saw her and wanted her to be played, which a lot of it wasn't on the page. And a lot of it, Martin Campbell didn't want to shoot that way because he was, he had a very specific way of like, okay, I'll just do a close up on this, do that, whatever. And I go, no, Martin, you have to go on my face because I want to have an orgasm while I'm, shooting a gun. And he'd be like, what? And I go, just let me. And then I would do it. And then the crew would start laughing and he would go, oh, okay, I'll shoot it. But how at that time I even had the guts to just say that? I don't understand, but I'm glad I did because from that moment on, my whole career changed and opportunities came my way that I had to fight very hard to just be taken seriously and not, go down the rabbit hole of being the Bond girl, whatever stigma crap that people put on you. And I'd already just overcome the model turned actress thing. So, but yeah, so then it just for me became a journey of longevity. Like, how can I do as many independent small parts, different characters to to create longevity and be taken seriously as an actor, which was amazing, and I'm so grateful I succeeded in that. But it also comes with people don't know who you are because you're not a big movie star that headlines a film. But I wanted a different journey. I wanted a journey of longevity, and I knew that from the background of the modeling and the Bond movie, that wasn't necessarily going to be an easy, transition like that. So, but I've done it all my way, and it's I think I would say in life everything comes at a price, and whatever price you're willing to pay, and I've never been willing to pay that price of losing my privacy because I'm a deeply private person. And so this way I've lived a life where I can walk down the street, I can do whatever I want to do. And I am creatively fulfilled. And could I have made more money? I'm sure I could have made a lot more money if I'd done a different journey and path, or could I have been more successful and more widely known? Absolutely. But this is the path I chose and created for
Mm.
myself. And
Yeah. Did you one of the anecdotes that Pierce Brosnan has talked about a lot, when they do those series on Vanity Fair where they look back at their career and he talks about obviously James Bond and everything else, that apparently when because you're in the room when he says Bond, James Bond for the
yeah,
very first time, and apparently he had to be taken out for some drinks and calmed down, was very, 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 very nervous. Did you get the sense that he was very, very nervous at that because it's the
I
first
think at
time
that point we
he's
all
saying it?
knew it
Yeah.
was, it was a big deal. But not only was it Pierce's first time, but it was also the longest gap they hadn't had a Bond movie. And so the pressure for him to succeed as a Bond, but also to bring back a franchise. I can't even imagine what that, I didn't have the pressure. I just had like no career or, maybe I was just going for broke. I'm like, whatever, let me just try. But for him, sure. No, I know.
Mm. Have you still found a fondness in the sense with fans that your group and your series of X-Men films is still so fondly regarded because obviously there's things happening. Hugh came back as Wolverine again. Patrick Stewart's popped up in other movies, you know, and then there's this big announcement with all these chairs with all these names on for the new
Right.
Avengers film. But Deadpool and Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds in particular wanted to showcase the fact that all these Fox movies have a lot of love, and a lot of these X-Men films really stand the test of time, and people are so invested in them. Are you still surprised? I guess you might go to conventions and stuff that Jean Grey and all of you guys together with Sue McKellen and Sir Patrick Stewart is so warmly embraced still,
No,
given that
it's great. And I think largely probably that is because in essence, I think at the time, the way that the those types of comic book adaptations had been told were, glossy and not personal, and no one could really, I was just like larger than life characters. And then X-Men, our first X-Men came along, and I think it was, we were told at the time, like, we want to ground these characters. They're real people. They're just people like anyone else with real problems. They happen to have special powers, but they're outsiders like everyone else. And I think that's really true to what the comic books were about. And so that may be the reason why they're still looked upon so fondly, because they were just grounded in a reality that I don't think we had seen in terms of costumes, in terms of acting, in terms of the way that they were filmed. It wasn't they were, yeah, I mean, even some of the special effects. I was literally standing there with like there was like somebody is almost like they were fishing with like a little thing that went in front of my eyes, that I was levitating across the room. Like it couldn't be more rinky dink, you know what I mean? So they had a reality, and they had this, just being truly grounded in a way that I think probably is something that stuck with people, because that's why they turned to these comics in the first place, because they went, oh, I can identify with that person. That person doesn't belong. I don't belong, And I think that's how we played it. And so I'm glad that it struck a nerve. And I think more and more, because people are watching so much, we're probably going back to needing more authenticity and people responding to things that are more real and authentic, because you see it. Like, there are not as many of those big Hollywood movies anymore. People are watching Squid Games. People are watching, you know what I mean? Like Lupin, whatever it is, hopefully Amsterdam Empire. And, it's just authenticity. I think people hunger for authenticity.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Alexa, stop. Good Lord, that's my wife's cooking. I forgot. So sorry. Just before we, yeah, I was wondering what that was. She forgot about her cooking. Just finally, have you got a chair? Have they given you a chair? Everyone else has got a chair in this new Avengers film. Have they given Famke Janssen a chair?
No, no,
No.
no.
We'll see. Like you said with your scripts, those Avengers movies, the scripts change, I think, every day. So who knows, who might pop up.
In the meanwhile, I'm just having a beautiful career, and I'm super grateful for all the different types
Indeed.
of, I'm about to start a project in Bulgaria, and I'm just filmed in Arkansas, and, just keeping my nomadic lifestyle going. And
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Well, that's my time with you. Also, The Faculty, brilliant film.
Oh my God. Well,
Faculty.
somewhere I read that they were going to remake it, and
Apparently so. Apparently it's still on the car. I think now they've done a new how I know what he did last summer, all those kind of things. So I would imagine surely.
but
But yours,
Rodriguez
that's
was
good.
going
In
to
a way, it's
remake his
good
own
because yours is
film.
so pure. Yeah, yours
I
is so
know,
pure. So just leave it
but
as
also
what it
it's
is.
unusual that the same director would remake his own film. But so
Yes. Who
interesting.
knows? Who knows? But I
Yeah.
love that film. I used to watch it a lot when
Yeah.
I was a teenager. So yeah, fantastic career. And listen, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you. I
And
hope
I
the kitchen's
really
not on fire.
no, it's okay at the minute. It's fine. It's fine at the moment. And I wish you all the best with Amsterdam Empire. Hope it goes down
Thank you
really well
so
for you.
much.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much for your
it.
time. Pleasure.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey you guys!
Hey, you guys!